Welcome back, guys. So I'm gonna start this video out inside because it's like windy season. We're up there and that's miles per hour. That's the wind gust we're getting. And yeah, it's not a pretty good day to film, but that's okay. So our parts came in. I got a timing belt kit, got a new old stock Ford clutch cable, got a brand new new water pump, which I don't know how old this is. I'm not familiar with the parts brands you guys have over there, but it turns good. It looks pretty good. I was worried maybe the seal would be bad in it from sitting, but it doesn't look like it's too terribly old. So all this came from the UK eBay. So if anybody over there sold this to me, thank you. It's gonna get put to good use pretty quick. So like you read the title of the video, we may have found out why this thing was parked. So I'm going through, changing the coolant hoses. And like, I don't know, maybe some of you guys noticed. So, this isn't a factory hose clamp. These are what they should look like. This is a factory hose. This is not. And in the back of my mind, I kind of always wondered, I was like, why does it have a mixed smash of, different hoses? Well, I'll go take you back there, kind of walk you through and give you my theory on what I think is actually wrong with this poor truck. All right, we're here at the truck now. Hopefully you can hear me. I've got the truck kind of blocking the wind. And like I showed you a second ago, those numbers are right. It's pretty windy and gusty. So, like I was saying, for a truck that supposedly has 17,000 miles, why are some of the hoses changed, some of them not? And I'll just kind of go through in the order that I found this stuff. And, this thing, the people we bought it from, they bought it from an auction, 30-something years ago. So this kind of sort of fits my theory of, what I'm thinking happened to this. So, for starters, you'll see that, that's just flaking off. And then, so that was the first thing I saw. Okay, I've seen that on, trucks that are 20 years old, just from not changing the coolant. Then we move over here, and that's some real, it's not scaly rust, it's real bad pitting in there. I saw that and I'm like, well, okay. But then again, poor maintenance, stuff like that. So, moving along, I go and pull this off. Again, it's steel, mild steel. The inside of it looks okay. Well, not really, but let's pretend. Eating off. And I've seen that again too. Nothing totally unusual. So then where'd I go from there? So then, I pull off that top hose. Well, this is where it starts getting good. It looks scaly and stuff. And this is aluminum, by the way. Okay. Well then, you've got that. It's a hole in it. So, starting to wonder, how long did it just have real bad coolant, or did this thing sit with water in it? And here's the thermostat. Doesn't look terribly bad, but it is stainless, so this rust will flake off of it. Or not stainless, brass. Could be stainless. So I'm going through there. It's like, well, let's just pretend, we'll hope no one put water in it. And then I found this. I don't know if you can see it. Got a little monster in the way. Is that right? Hang on. Get out of the way. I'll pet you in a second. But anyway. So then, I don't know if you can see in there real well. So it's got this goo sitting in the bottom of it. And when you smell it, it's right up there with, get over here, dude. Destroying the shop. Anyway, it's right on, for me, it's right on par with like a bad head gasket. You're getting combustion into the cooling system. And see the heater core, you know, it doesn't look terrible. Some of that looks like residue from, you know, the fallout of the coolant from sitting, but you know, there's goo in here. Here's what it looks like. It could be nothing, but it smells like it's got combustion gas in it. So my theory is did this thing run hot enough where it cracked a head or blew a head gasket, and then started over pressurizing these hoses to the point where, you know, they were changing them out because it was splitting hoses? Or did it split a hose, they ran it with no coolant, cracked a head or head gasket again, and then kept filling it with water and realized it was a lost cause and parked it? You know, I'm not real sure on that. But yeah, finding that wasn't, and it doesn't look bad, but if you could smell it, it smells pretty rank. So, you know, I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead, put new hoses on it, and I'm gonna bypass the heater core because I don't want to come out one morning with a puddle of coolant on the floor of the truck. I think it's solid brass, but I'm not for sure, and I don't want to find out, nor do I want to change it right now. I just want to get this thing moving and kind of get a list of what it needs when it's moving. So I'm just gonna go, and I don't want to pull it out of the head and, you know, open a can of worms. So gonna go from there to wherever that pipe went, to this. And then again, you know, yeah, I know I'm kind of all over the place, but as I see it, I'm talking about it. You know, that's buildup in there. Not good. But anyway, yeah, we'll bypass the radiator or heater core from there to the lower hose. I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I'm probably gonna leave this out initially. So that way, whatever's in here will get knocked loose as it's circulating, and then I can flush it out. Because my worry is if I leave it in there, you're gonna get some big flakes or something. It'll block it and then overheat it. If it's not, that's what this thing's any good. It's got even compression, so I don't think it's a head gasket. It might just be a whole lot of nothing. So, I hadn't planned on, you know, filming any of this. I was just gonna throw a water pump on it, then throw the front clip on, and then, you know, start with the clutch and cleaning out the truck and work from there. But I figured, you know, maybe this is the real reason they parked it. I don't know. At the end of this video, we'll know, because I should have this thing running and driving unless there's some kind of other hidden gem for me. So here's a part I've kind of been dreading. I don't know how tight these are in the block, or if they're going to snap off. Seems all right so far. Oh, wow. So that's the result I was hoping for. I was worried they were going to break off in the block after seeing how bad some of that stuff was. The pitting. If you see it, they look like brand new. Well, that makes me feel a whole lot better. I guess we'll see here in a second what it looks like inside the block. I think there should be a pretty big cavity behind here, if I'm not mistaken. Got my sidekick showing up to help. What's up, Tiny? It's kind of tight. And I don't want to run them out with an impact, because you don't have a feel for it if it's trying to cross thread coming out or if you're about to snap it off in the block. So I'm thinking this is probably the first time this pump's ever been off this engine since it was put together back in the 70 something. Which I know some of you guys saying this is a later one, and that's kind of what I'm seeing, and that's what the title says. But I think I've seen a couple different dates on here, so I'm not real sure really what year this thing actually is. But I do know the title and the VIN match, and that's the most important part. Last one. I think that's the last. Oh, look at that. That doesn't look promising at all. So this is what I was talking about earlier. It has this goo and it's rust and scale and sediment. Really, this is not looking good at all. So what I'll do is I'll get it all together, and then I'll get it up front where there's some water, and I'll just run the hose through here and kind of, see, like that's blocked off completely in there. Probably can't see it. Yeah, not good at all. Maybe this thing is going to get a direct injected 2.5 at some point. Because yeah, that's terrible. Maybe it'll clean out. I don't know. We'll see. That one feels okay, but this one, that's the worst. So I'll go try to get this cleaned up some and slap my new old stock water pump on there. So I got an idea. I'm gonna pour about 4 gallons of water through where the thermostat comes in and see what I can flush out. It's gonna make a mess, but you know, it's better than having this crap just floating in there. See if we're successful at this. Curious to see what comes out. Yeah, that doesn't look good at all. So yeah, I'm dumping in clean water. This is what we're getting out. Oh, it's clearing up. And yeah, I'm gonna replace the time belt before I start it again, so that's not a big deal. Cleared up all right. Maybe we're not in terrible shape. It's not great, but you know, what are you gonna do? It's just a toy after all for me. I'm not gonna run it down the highway. So this, I don't know if it'll pick it up. That's what's in there. It's just, can't tell if it's steel, like rusted metal, or coolant that didn't mix with other coolant. I'm not sure. I just know it's not real good. And this does make me feel better. Get you in there. So it actually looks pretty clean. Minus this stuff right here, but that's, you know, that's not actually in the metal. It's just stuck to it. So maybe it's not too bad. I don't know. If you look in there, it doesn't look terrible. Not like that one up there, but I think that's just buildup. So maybe my first idea of, you know, just run it and let this stuff break free in there, maybe that's not such a bad idea after all. Here's a pump I ended up buying on eBay. It's a First Line water pump. Never heard of that brand. We don't get them here. When it gets like a cheap parts store brand, but here it is. I think it'll work. Dude, knock it off. She doesn't listen, but I think it's a cheap parts store brand. Turns over, it's brand new, new old stock. The gasket kind of dried. Made in England, that's cool. But I think for what I'm doing, it'll work. Anything else in here? No. I don't know. This looks like maybe 90s, 80s, 90s. Either way, if that seal holds up, it's really all I'm concerned about. Yeah, like I showed earlier, here's the other parts I got. Nothing special. I don't know if I showed these. But yeah, this is going to be, I'm going to put this in the fuel line. It's a check valve, a one-way. Just in case, because where I have the pump in relation to the tank, it does kind of like to bleed back, and it'll get some air in there, so it'll run choppy for a few seconds, and I'd just rather not have to deal with that. Well, we'll install this and just kind of go from there. Here's a better look at this housing now that I cleaned it up some. It's got 2 holes and you can see through. Pretty rough shape. I wasn't expecting this. I would have went ahead and bought one, but here we are. It's factory Ford part. So it's been on there since the beginning. The ceiling side, it's in pretty good shape, which I'm happy about. So that's that cleaned up. It's okay. I'll get it to seal. Same with this. That's what we're dealing with. It just totally ate it all away. So I'm kind of worried what the inside of the block probably looks like, but seeing that one part wasn't too bad, maybe there's hope. But I guess we'll just have to find out. So what we got here is I'm going to make a gasket for the thermostat housing. I didn't want to spend the money. Well, for one, I didn't think about it, but now that I'm here, I didn't want to spend the money to have one of these things shipped over here when I can just go buy a piece of gasket paper and make a gasket. So I'm going to show you guys how to make a gasket when they don't sell them here in your country. Alright, so your first step you're going to want to do is trace, you know, where you need to cut on your housing. What you need to cut out. And making these are pretty simple. It's not hard at all. To me, the hardest part really is making the holes. Let's see, like, doesn't fit in there. That's okay, because I'm gonna cheat. Maybe. I say that. So what I'm trying to do, pull that out. And at least get something so I know kind of where I want to mark it, or where I want to punch a hole at. Yep, see, that worked. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can see. So the next step, totally just ruined this pen, I think. Nope, still works. Next step, you want to cut it out. I'll use a scalpel I'll use a razor blade. That scalpel's kind of on the dull side. I'm not doing real good at following the lines either. So we'll just go around. Cut. There we go. Trim it up just a little bit. So next step, if you guys hadn't seen this is specifically for making gaskets and punching holes. I always go a little bit bigger to give myself some wiggle room. You guys might bounce. I don't think that was quite centered either. Let's try it. Let me find somewhere hard. So there we go. Almost done. A little bit on the crude side, but you know it works. So for me, this is the harder part. Just trying to figure out, you know, where the middle is. So the gasket that came off here originally was pretty far gone. I can't use it as a template. I'm gonna feel around. I'm sure there's better ways of doing this, but this is my method. And I'm sure pieces of gasket floating around in there isn't gonna really hurt anything compared to what's already in there, the metal and all that stuff. So that gives me a general idea. And if you do make gaskets, generally you won't get it right the first time unless you're just something you do all the time. I'm getting there. I'm trying not to tear it because I don't want to start over again. So there. I think now I can reach in there with the pen and mark it a little better. Nope. There we go. That felt promising. Oh yeah. Promising indeed. I just kind of sort of follow the contour of what I got. And there's not going to be a thermostat in here to start with, so I'm not super worried about, you know, blocking the thermostat or blocking the coolant flow. Oh yeah, that'll work perfect. Might shave it a little here. But in my eyes, I think this will work great. Alright. I'd call that pretty good. I don't know if you guys can see. Like I said, not OEM quality, But as long as it'll work, that's really all I'm concerned about. And I'm not looking at the camera, I'm filming this with an iPhone, so if it's like up here and stuff, well, that's just where it's at. But you guys get the idea. That's how you make a gasket. All right, I got the cooling system about 80% done. Right now it's just mocked up, and I think this is gonna work. Some of these hoses, none of these hoses are actually meant for this truck. But I went with what I had. We went in the back and just pretty well compared and got as close as we could to the right bends. Like this one's long, but you couldn't find the right size, the right length, like the old one. I did go ahead and bypass the heater core, and I'll get this hung up like this. I'll put one of those clips on there for the air cleaner lid. Keep it out of my throttle, because that's what it's gonna end up hitting. But I had to make, you know, 2 hoses out of one. Like this one here is part of this hose. And then this hose had a totally different bend in it, but it's not kinked, so we're good. But yeah, that's where we're at today. I didn't get as much done. The sun's going down, I got a late start. I was hoping to have this thing running and driving, but it's not gonna happen today. So I figured I'd just give you kind of a quick update where we are. This one was really hard to film, so there's not much footage on the cooling lines because it, you know, the stuff's like buried in there and you really can't get a camera up in there. And it was aggravating, and this took me probably 3 hours. Two or three trips to the parts store to get the right size clamps, right size hose. And I'd already had a box of hoses thinking, okay, you know, I'll just slap the hoses on and stuff. Gonna probably reuse these belts. They can't get them in time. I can't get them off the parts or off the online quick enough to have this going. I kind of have a deadline that I want this thing up and running and driving, and these won't come in time. So I'm just gonna try my luck and run them. I think they'll be okay. But yeah, that's where we're at. Tomorrow we'll go put the nose back on it. Well, first I'll put the timing belt. I got the brand new belt. I'll show you that real fast. So here's what we got. And this is the main reason I'm changing it. It's because of this little guy. Pretty sure it's the right one. This is for a Mark II Transit. Maybe I'll get this open. And I don't know how old this is either. It's new old stock. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. But I don't know if you can tell. You see how those teeth are flat on the end. And these down here, they're not flat. And that's the main reason I want to change it back out, because I don't know if you can see right up here. You can see how there's a gap between the tooth and the belt. That's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to make full contact on all of it. But we'll fix that. I got all the parts to do it, I think. So tomorrow, that's gonna be my plan, is I'm gonna try to get this thing at least moving under its own power. And we'll see what we got from there. So here's the finished product. Before I close it up, got the new timing belt, the right one on here. Got the pulley bearing on there. Got the water pump on there and the hose. So next up, I'm just gonna put the cover on it and move on to the cooling system, I guess. Bleed it out, see if we have any issue. Like I was saying earlier, you can see how those fit in there a lot better than this old belt. I don't know if you can tell side by side, but they work, but it's not the same belt. Not what it's supposed to have. So I'm gonna slap this thing together real quick, and you've already seen me take it apart, so I'm not gonna really film it going back together, but I'll show you the finished product here in a second. Here's the finished product. The first time I've ever seen it with all the belts on it. So I ended up finding a belt laying around here. It's not perfect, but it'll work. It's better than what it had. Came off one of these junk air compressors. Didn't find one of these, but it's only running the vacuum pump for the brakes, which I don't even know if that booster works. But I'm not worried about it. Between the foot brake and the hand brake, I can get it stopped. So, got some bolts for the bottom of the radiator. Like, if you remember, they were missing for these mounts down here. And yeah, I'll throw the radiator in it, throw the grill back on it, and then we'll see if this thing will hold any coolant or anything. Time for the moment of truth. So I'm gonna run this stuff. It's that blue coolant. I don't have anything to use it in, nor have I ever seen anything use this. So figured why not? This would be the best thing ever to use it in. I got some regular tap water, which if you saw, I don't think tap water is gonna affect this thing any. I'll set you guys up somewhere where you can watch me pour it in, and we'll see if we have any leaks, or if it's in hydrolocks, or if it's just fine. Like I said, this is really the first time it'll be run correctly with a water pump, hoses, and coolant in it. And as much as I want to run straight water in it to, you know, run it, and flush it, it's almost the end of October, and we're at the time of year where in the morning it'll be, I don't know, 25, 28 degrees. And then like right now, last I looked, it was 91 degrees. So quite a variation. And I'm afraid I'd probably crack something in there if it's not already cracked. But I don't want to be the guy that causes it, so I'll just run some coolant in it for now. Then later on, I'll flush it out. Doesn't have an amp gauge, but we do have vacuum. I don't know if the temp gauge is gonna work. We'll see. The wiring's there, but seeing how bad bad shape everything else was in there, I don't know if the gauge will work. Oh damn, it was halfway in gear. That's bad. So yeah, all I gotta do left, well, I can't think today. All I have left to do is put the bull news back on. I don't see any leaks. It is getting warm. Not like hot warm, it's warming up. And yeah, put this back on. And then the next video, which I'm out of time today, we'll get the clutch cable on here to fix these front tires. I'll put some tubes in them. And we'll take this thing for a drive. I'm pretty confident it'll move under its own power. So we'll see. Join me on the next video, guys. Thanks for watching.